Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight for Our Freedom Radio. And I'm your host, Badbaby. And tonight we are honored to have with us Dave Dobbs, and Jeff P. isn't here yet, but he's supposed to be joining us, and I'm sure he'll figure it out how to get into the window. But I just want to say thank you so much, Dave, for getting up at 4 in the morning, you little early bird, but I hear you haven't slept yet, so don't fall asleep on us. I don't have any electronic little device where I can cattle prod you and wake you up.
No, I haven't. I haven't had any sleep at all yet. Actually, funny enough, I've not that that's a problem. Actually, I've just been every time I go on someone's radio show, obviously I have to kind of review all my material and think, well, what am I going to talk about? And then I always think, oh God, I've nothing to say, and then I have to sort of go through everything and think, well, maybe I could talk about this, and maybe I could talk about that, and then suddenly I start looking at everything. I think, actually, I've got loads to say. I've just got too much to say, and I never really know what I'm going to sort of like, what I'm going to pull up or what I'm going to talk about. But
Let's see if we can adjust your mic a little bit, Dave, because you're a little bit faint. Can you adjust your mic a little bit?
I can actually. Let me just come back onto that, and what I'll do. Hold on one sec.
Okay. That's a little bit better.
That's a little bit better, is it? I could also, hold on. Let me just go on to my little system preferences here and click on the sound, and I will go into input, and oh look, it says output volume. Input volume seems pretty high anyway.
Okay, well you're sounding pretty good now.
Am I? Okay, well the mic's right next to my mouth now, so maybe it wasn't quite close enough, but that should probably do it, shouldn't it?
Yes. Okay,
cool.
So you were saying you have to go over your material.
Well, I mean, you know, it's, you know, where are we now? Where are we in this? You know, for most people that have followed my channel. That's just listed in my name, Dave Dobbs. Not that Dave Dobbs is actually my real name. My real name is David Field, but my name Dave Dobbs was kind of born from a bunch of my friends had a sound system in Brighton called named after Bob Dobbs. So it was kind of the Bob sound system. It was just called Bob after Bob Dobbs, which was kind of born in San Francisco. It was kind of the whole subgenius kind of like, you know, the story of Bob was actually all emanates from, I didn't know it. There's millions. It was a whole series of comics. It was like an avant-garde kind of graffiti art movement. Well, it didn't start as a graffiti art movement. It started with Ivan Stang and writers like who wrote the Illuminati trilogy. I'm just trying to think of his name now.
Okay, we have a guest who just joined us. Let's see if this is Jeff. Is this you, Jeff? ST? Okay, they hung up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's see. Here we go again. Here's another one. Hello, is this you, Jeff? Okay, if this isn't you, I'm going to mute you back. See, the thing is, when someone calls in, if they call in and they don't have a screen name, then
there he is.
Here he is. Here he is. Okay, he's viewing us only. Jeff, when you first came in, Dave, you were viewing only, and then you ended up getting. Can you tell Jeff what to do?
Yeah, you kind of put your cursor to the top of the screen, and you'll see there's some different things there, Jeff. You've got microphones, you've got stop or start recording, and you've got share screen buttons, and I don't know what the raise hand is, but but you've got a raise hand.
That means you want to talk. So Jeff, of the viewing screen, you'll see a microphone, and click on them. Okay, he's got it. Okay, there we go. Hi, Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right on. Cool.
All right. Everybody's here. Okay, there is a share screen button up there. And also, if you hit the movie camera thing, then when you speak, your picture will show up. And when Dave speaks, he's on, his beautiful face is on there right now. See?
Well, what's the button shortcut you said for muting it?
Up there where the microphone was, see where it says start? Is that what you clicked on to get to your face up
That's
there?
right. It's right at the top
in
of
the
middle.
lower right.
In the upper middle. That's where it is on mine.
Oh,
It's,
okay.
you've got an upper middle, and you've got a share screen. You've got start video, and you've got a mute button. Can you see that, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm still having my Bluetooth mouse is having sync issues. So in the middle of the screen, we've got
Yes,
middle
on
of
the top.
middle of the top.
Oh, okay.
You
Right.
seen it?
Yeah.
And you want to hit the start video if you want us to see your beautiful face.
Yeah, that's gonna be a while before that happens.
Don't crack.
Nice try.
The screen, honey. Oh, we're gonna have a great time tonight, you guys. I just love it. Okay, everybody, we've got Dave Dobbs with us and Jeff P. And we are going to finally start talking about what in the wild, wild world is going on. And you know, I want to make a quick comment before we get started here, guys. You know, my thoughts on it are that this is really happening, this is really going down, and that they're diverting our attention with all this political crap and threats of wars and you know, and they're kind of like global warming. That's why, you know, you've done this to California with the fires and the floods and all this, and it's unprecedented, and you cannot hide it anymore. The fact that our oceans are receding, our earthquakes are happening, our volcanoes are going off, and we've got storms in the last 10 years that we've never seen before in my lifetime. And I just say on my side that it can't be hidden anymore, and they can't hide us either, can they?
No, definitely. I mean, in the last 10 days, just in the last 10 days, I just look what's happening in Hawaii. You know, snow at really, really low altitudes, right on the, you know what I mean? It's just like bigger waves than they've ever than they've seen. And you know, for me right now, you know, I mean, you know, Jeff and I have both kind of like have both been kind of observing Planet X and observing the effects of this whole thing for a really, very long time. And you know, for someone like myself to start, you know, I've been a climate change. I am a climate change, if you like, activist. But the very kind of like the backbone of oh, we've just lost Jeff.
Yeah, he'll come back. He'll come back.
Well, the very backbone of climate change for most of us has been the whole carbon story. And you can imagine that if now, I'm not saying that all carbon dioxide, well, I mean, if we're to assume that carbon dioxide is the fundamental kind of like production of you know, for humanity, and we're having to kind of sweep under the carpet constantly the fact that earthquakes and volcanoes are pumping out vast amounts of carbon dioxide, and we're translating carbon dioxide literally means build 1 billion cars, more than 1 billion cars, to replace all the old ones and cover the world with nuclear power stations, especially after what we saw happen in Fukushima. We can see that we're not just having this kind of obfuscated from us. They're using the whole strategy of carbon dioxide not only to drive the nuclear industry and drive massive industry at large, they're using it as a means to silence people like us who are looking at these big changes and saying, guys, what you're offering us is total rubbish. It just doesn't make any sense. You know, how are we going to solve the problems on this planet if we're not even able to look at them? I mean, that's going to be the most fundamental, primary means of solving some of the problems that we're facing, is at least being able to look at them. really look at the problems, not the kind of like, not just kind of address this kind of like this. It's greenwashing. It's literally greenwashing. I know greenwashing was a phrase that came out in the late 90s, but it kind of best describes what's actually happening is we're throwing bullshit stories at the situation, which is just stopping us from being able to engage in the problem. So we're not able, if we can't look at the problem, you know, we have people like James Lovelock, and I was a great fan of James Lovelock, who was kind of like, who came out with Gaia, the whole Gaia theory, and it's amazing and all that sort of stuff. But nonetheless, he was the one who really came out strong and said, look, we've got to embrace nuclear to offset our carbon. And so we're all in this crazy story of just we're just in these dynamics where we can't even approach this story without suddenly having a load of environmentalists coming up and attacking us, saying you're a climate change denier if you're considering that earthquakes and volcanoes are going off everywhere. You're like, oh God, we're all just attacking each other every juncture.
Al Gore, he started the old cover story of climate, that we're destroying the climate. Right. Well, if he is so damn worried about the climate, why does he got all these mansions that got $3,000 electric bills every month,
Yeah, and flying jets all over the place.
Yeah, okay. Hey, buddy, turn some of your lights off.
Right. And his 6-ton Suburban assault vehicle he drives around town to get groceries.
It's great to hear your voice, Jeff.
Yeah, it's good to hear you too.
Oh, you got a very calming voice. You got a very lovely, calming voice. I always love your videos. You have this lovely. You never get angry. You have this kind of like lovely, soft way of kind of like of expressing something. I was talking to Maverick yesterday, the Relentless Maverick, and then Steve Olsen jumped on. We didn't do a kind of podcast. We were just having a little chat because I've been thinking. The Relentless Maverick has got in contact with me a few times and said we should organize a podcast. But we had a great chat, and you came up in the conversation quite a bit, actually. in the nicest way.
Right.
It was all good.
Jeff, I got a quick question for you. On the Sun Simulator, is that one of the reasons why we aren't really seeing what's going on?
Yeah, I am convinced that I was convinced that we had a simulator when I was observing from the International Space Station that when the sun was supposed to appear up and we didn't, and when I was aware that the planets, the 4 big planets, were transitioning in front of our sun like almost on a daily basis, how could you hide something like that? How does the world like not see a solar eclipse, right?
Right.
So, and you guys, I hope you've all seen my if you just go to YouTube and you search Jeff P is right, and then watch the video at the 51-second mark, and slow down the video, and the guy is actually staring right down the barrel of the spiraling beams of light, and you could see like this paraboloidal shape just like spin like almost at the speed of light in front of it. And he said like it was just crazy. You could see these X's appearing, but it was in that sweet spot where it flashed across the screen just for a moment. A very distinct hyperbolic shape.
Do you know what? One of the shots that you put up a long time ago, I don't know if you remember where it was, but it was a webcam shot of it. What happened was you saw a landscape, and then suddenly the light changed, and as the light changed, the whole landscape distorted and moved slightly up, changed. Everything just re-altered itself, reconfigured itself into a slightly different position. And went back, and then suddenly shot back down again. And do you remember that?
Yeah, there was a few like that. Yeah, and I think that Matt Rogers, he just slowly putting the pieces of this puzzle together, because I always knew that they were cloaking it, but didn't know exactly how. And Matt Rogers had shown, it's gonna be my next video. It's getting a preview now. Was showing a chemtrail, and a couple, 3 or 4 videos back.
I saw it.
Well, they laid down a chemtrail, but they were broken, and they were like slightly rotated at exact lengths. Like I would say just by a few degrees, but you could see that the triangles and the circles below the chemtrails.
Yeah.
Which shows me they've got light bending devices underneath at a fairly low altitude. And that's where yeah, go ahead.
But the funny thing was that speaking to the Relentless Maverick yesterday, he said that he showed me a video which I found utterly compelling. He showed me these images. They were in San Francisco. He was talking about the hopefully he's going to do a video. In actual fact, if we do a podcast with him, hopefully we might be able to explain. If I do a podcast with him on Wednesday, hopefully we're going to explore it more. But basically, he shows how we can see. I don't know how many miles it is on a kind of like to the horizon. It's about 20-30 miles or what have you. And then supposedly things disappear behind the horizon. But he shows using infrared how you can see up to 123 miles away which is why many people think that we're actually in a flat Earth. We're actually on a flat Earth.
Yeah.
And what he actually shows, what the guy who actually makes a video, what he does is he proves this whole thing by going through this whole kind of like process of showing you how he does it. And he basically shows you he's 123 miles away from these mountains in San Francisco. And he's out at sea. It's completely flat. You can't see the mountains, and yet he uses the infrared, and suddenly all the mountains can be seen. Now, if all the mountains can be seen for infrared, but they can't be seen using the normal light spectrum we use with our eyes, then what's actually happening is our eyes are trained to use a spectrum of light which is very, very affected by, he calls it atmospheric compression, and says that what happens is picture that the actual the light rays that are either effectively, I suppose, bouncing off the mountains and then traveling across and meeting your eyes are actually dropping down and being pulled down towards gravity, so they're bowing down between the 2 points. And so that's why
by a planetary object, you mean?
No, this is just a natural. This is just a naturally occurring thing that's happening, which is why we can only see a certain amount of distance. But if you use infrared, you get the full spectrum. So, you can imagine why the military use infrared, because they're getting a full spectrum of what you're seeing, this unobstructed kind of view. And so, if we're experiencing that, he talks about how there's a massive part of the community. There's a massive part of the world at large that literally cannot see this. And he talks about how he can't see, he's got a problem seeing, I think he said he's got a problem seeing certain parts of maybe red, maybe partially colorblind or something like that. I'm not too sure how he explained it. But he said that basically most of us, they're using a specific types of light which affect our ability to. It's doing kind of this same sort of obfuscation by using specific colors which basically just which are kind of they're he said they're effectively blinding us from it, or we are effectively being blinded by it, by the colors that they're bringing into this spectrum, which make it impossible for us to see it, except for some people can see it, like him and certain people. And so he goes through a lot of people's videos because he can see certain stuff that we're just blind to.
Yeah.
And then
there's people, you can actually get those online eye tests, because not everybody can see the same colors everybody see. Not everybody has the same color sensitivity, different differentiate between colors and shades and contrasts.
Yeah, he was talking about one. What was he talking about? He was talking about IQ, EYEQUE, and said you've got to check out this test and find out whether or not you've got the capacity, what your capacity to actually to see things is to whether or not you need to start kind of like, taking your photos. That's why we need to take photos, and then like yourself, I mean, you spend an enormous amount of time processing data, but we need to take photos and then process them in such a way as to bring out the things to adjust for the sensitivity of our eyes. So so it is good to do an eye test. He was telling me to do the same thing, saying, look, do an eye test. You might find that it's all right in front of you. You just can't see it.
Well, I think one of the eye tests I've seen that you can get on you can see them on YouTube or whatever, but you can get it'll show like 10 squares and they all look red, but one will be like it'll start off like maybe like 20% lighter shade of red than the rest. And you need to pick out the one, and then it'll go to where it's the most slightest color and you got to pick it. And it says like, like very rare part of the population could see that difference of shades. So I actually took that test. I scored pretty high on it, but I could see like,
Okay.
I've had my wife into it. And I'm like, can you see that? No, I don't. Can you see? Do they all look the same to you, or do you see one that's a little different than the rest? So convincing people, yeah. So showing people stuff, unless it really has a lot of contrast to it, isn't going to be compelling to the masses.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, it's light is not my spectrum. Excuse the pun, but 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 the so one of the things I wanted to talk about right now is for me right now is it's quite an interesting time because I've just come through I've just I've been running this timeline, and obviously I was expecting well, let me share screen. Can I share the screen one, Shay? Can just show you the show you where
Absolutely, darling.
Let's
Go
see if
right
we can
ahead.
do that. What can entire screen
Up at the top in the middle, it says share screen.
Okay. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so we are kind of at this where we've just come to this. Let's just come forward a little bit, and we'll come to if I just move that out of the way over there. I don't know if you can see that, but hopefully. So this is quite an interesting image that I found recently. I found it only a few months ago, and I was on the 22nd of this. Well, that was on the 20th of December, and I think that was the same day. Yours was on the 24th of December 2015. Do you remember when you showed the twin sons, Jeff? I think that was on the 24th, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
And then Becky Lewis. I haven't got Becky Lewis's shot in there actually, but Becky Lewis had shown a shot very similar to this shot, and very much the same sort of size. This shot was it was in Melbourne, Australia, on the 20th of December 2015. And this was the time I'd said it would fly by on the 22nd of December, and Becky caught it on the 24th of December. Sorry, I'd said it would occur on the 22nd, and then we'd had this on the 4th of January. But I hadn't have discovered this until only just like a matter of like about two months ago. Now you can imagine because I was assuming that it was this size, and then if we come forward again. And we come back round to this point here where we saw it coming in, we saw it dumping the dust, and we had this big sighting here on the 21st of January 2017. So you kind of like, you're seeing how I was assuming it was getting smaller, bigger, and then we come around again to the beginning of 2018, and we saw the massive tail again just there, and then we're looking up the tail. See, we're looking up the tail of it there, basically there, this thing has gone past us over here, because I've got this thing going chunk, chunk, chunk in big movements, and it's not to scale or anything else like that, but it's the best I can do to try and squeeze it all onto the screen. But you can see how we're literally looking up the tail of it. So that's beyond us. We're looking up the tail of it, and it's reflecting the light of the sun, which is why it's such a concentric.
Let me ask you this: the red object at the 1 o'clock, is that the Nemesis star?
Yeah, that's the red Kachina with the blue Kachina following behind it.
Oh, the red and blue. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of roughly assuming that that's the central point, because if this is around about the sort of like the February-March position, that's where, because we had the big earthquake, the 8.8 on the 27th of February 2010, which was a standalone massive earthquake. That was the only thing we'd seen equivalent to that was the massive earthquake that occurred in Chile in the massive earthquake that occurred. It was a massive tsunami on Boxing Day 2004 that affected Indonesia and India, and and so that's the only other time we'd seen a massive earthquake. And then of course the earth had gone just past it there. We'd had a massive earthquake, and then it comes around again to the 27th of February 2011, moves another 13 days, and we get a 9.6, and we get another massive tsunami. And so seeing those two earthquakes so close gave me this kind of pivotal point where you just cannot ignore a piece of data like that, especially when you get 3 nuclear power stations that split open at the same time. How can you just sweep that under the carpet and just try and say we've just got to move on to the next shopping experience? It's just utterly insane. Anyway, so then we had this sighting, and I was expecting a massive sighting here, but actually we never really saw the big flyby like we did the previous year. We saw all the red dust, we saw everything, and then of course we'd come to, the Turkey report posted this epic shot of it going into our night sky, and of course Seven Spalding caught this epic shot going into our night sky. So it must have actually passed us, but was it smaller then? Was it bigger? Because we hadn't seen the big flyby. But then it goes by very quickly. It could be that they absolutely chemtrailed the bugger out of it, and it just disappeared, and it was utterly there, because you know what they're like with their chemtrails. But I can't, I struggle to believe you could obfuscate it globally and that someone doesn't see it. But anyway, so when we came round to this year, and we come back round, obviously we had the big earthquakes and everything else like that. The Relentless Maverick posted that shot. We've had these two shots that Steve Olsen posted up. We had Jim Saar post this shot, and we had this shot. Look at the date, on the 18th of January. Now,
whoa.
Can you see?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive, man.
Now, and then, and then we keep going round, and now we're expecting it to go into our night sky, and we are getting shots. Earthly Patriot has recently posted a shot coming up. Obviously, Steve Olsen's just posted up another shot. Who else is Planet X? Alex Lujan has posted up an interesting shot. We're just starting to see this kind of this red haze. And who else has just posted? I mean, Planet X Hunter is also showing some very, very interesting shots, sort of alluding to the same thing. And who else just posted something? I think it was, what was his name? I think Roger Paul just posted. He's just posted some very interesting shots of some sort of spiraling, a spiraling cloud system. It's not too conclusive, and he's talking about the red oxide, but he's on it. And if I think he's very likely, all of the characters I've just mentioned there are really already on it. They're out there all the time, and the big money shot of it coming into the night sky, I'm convinced it's going to have to come, because it's too many shots there. It's absolutely right on the money. But
yeah, so your next your last call date Wasn't that September 17th of 2018?
Well, that was the point when it comes across here. So we get this point where it comes across here, and it's really close to Earth's orbit here. Even though my model doesn't really, but we, this is why I was able to predict it, because we get this point. We saw it. We've seen it regularly, haven't we? Because we saw it. Matt Rogers caught it on the 15th of August, 2016. Do you remember that massive shot where? I won't go straight back to it now because we just got this point here. But Matt Rogers got an epic shot of it just here. On August the 15th, 2016. Then you had August the 17th, 2017. It was a similar thing. Do you remember I called it out? We were talking about it recently, actually. You and I were talking about it recently, and you said that was a shot that I called out. It was August the 17th, 2017. It was epic. It was seen on both sides of the Atlantic. It was seen in Portugal and it was seen in Brazil.
Yeah.
They were calling it the Fist of God. And on the same day, the ESO, the European Southern Observatory, recorded massive gravitational anomaly, but also said that the Earth had been hit by a massive bolt of gamma radiation, which is a form of light, which is a part of the light spectrum. And if it's part of the light spectrum, and we're assuming that, hang on, this is light, so it travels at the speed of light. And the official story was that two neutron stars had collided 230 million light years away. Now, just to give you some perspective, when they're telling you that they found a solar system that they think could support life that's 10 light years away, at our current speeds would take us 65 million years to get there. And you're talking about 230 million light years away. And you're saying, hang on, you're saying that the gravitational effects hit us exactly the same time as the light effects. But the gravitational kind of forces are supposed to kind of like travel instantaneously, but the light is supposed to travel at obviously light speed. Then surely we would get the kind of gamma ray radiation, something like 230 million light years after the electromagnetic anomaly. I mean,
right.
the whole thing is just like, it's like, when space agencies are giving you lies, they're obviously being told to give you lies. They're being told, look, don't scare the people, blah, 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 whatever their narrative is, that they can't tell the truth. So they give you this kind of spin, but they're obviously told to lie. They're just thinking, look, we've been told to lie, but it's so wrong what we're doing that if we're going to lie to them, we should at least give them such a ridiculously absurd lie, so at least they can see through it.
That's a good point.
Well, as long as they keep repeating it, Dave, and then pound it into your head, just like they did 9/11. I mean, how many times did they record that plane hitting the tower? If you see it enough, it's a form of mind control is what it is.
Right.
Yes, but yeah, it really is. It's total bombardment. Anyway, where I'm going with this is that we're seeing the same reoccurring patterns now. And if we're seeing the same reoccurring patterns, I'm starting to realize that, there's certain things. If I actually go back here to this date here, I'm going to just go right, we're going to go reverse back, and we're going to go to my little timeline here. See this timeline here?
Yes.
I'm just going to turn the volume down on that so it doesn't interfere. Hopefully. Now we're just going to run this. So from the 5th of August, the first of the twin sightings after. So we'd had Comet Hale-Bopp, and then we had the Great Comet of 2002 and 2003, and then it kind of disappeared out of view until the 5th of August 2011. And then every 198 days thereabouts after that, or 200 days after that, we seem to have a sighting, and that's how I charted it for quite some time. Now, if we come to, we're going to go to 2016. Look at that date here, the 9th of July, 2016. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
look, 22nd of December, 2015, 5th of June, 2000. If you go back, you'll see like this was maybe the 13th of November, 2000. The the timing of this and the 200-day kind of like date calculator, which is I use this so I could go through YouTube and do date searches to find all these different sightings, because I just couldn't find them, but I needed to have some kind of sort of like head start. And this is, I found specific patterns enough to know that it was like there was 800 days between two sightings, and then there was 400 days between two sightings, and there was 600 days. It was something like that, you know. And I started realizing, well, 200 fits into all those numbers. 200 fits into all those numbers. So I went for the 200-day mark, and sure enough, I found all these sightings, and I couldn't find any more than that. People said, oh, if you look long enough, you'll find anything on YouTube, but that's not really the case. And they fit into very, very specific patterns. Anyway, when it came to the 9th of July, 2016, let's come to the 9th of July, 2016, and you'll see that I predicted that shot where Becky Lewis caught. I said, you know, a month before, I said a week before, I said, look it up in the night skies, because it should come into view around about now. You're going to see it on the 28th, 29th. And sure enough, Becky Lewis caught it. She said, Dave Dobbs put a video up, and there it is, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, we come to 23rd of June, 2016. Now, look at this. Nibiru, next due, Glastonbury Festival weekend, end of June 2016. Notice I didn't put the date of the 9th of July. I didn't say the beginning of July, like 9th of July, and all the other times I'd said. Now, you know the reason I did that?
Why?
Because that was the date of the Brexit vote. And that was the day it flooded in London, and we had crazy storms and everything else like that. And I started to realize, because in my whole process in doing this, was that I didn't come into this from just purely an astronomical kind of like interest. I came into this because I wrote this book called Laughing Gas, and when I wrote Laughing Gas, I was given a message, and I was told, we approach a wall, and nothing of war will get past this wall. Throw all your depleted uranium, all your nuclear bombs, all your hate, all your racism, all your blame, all your division. Nothing will get past this wall. Nothing of war will get past this wall, you know. And that's just the way it is. And this thing regulates this very thing. This is the, you know, I didn't know about this thing. I didn't know what it was. You know, in the whole process of writing, and the doors that I opened in, you know, because I got the message on ayahuasca, and of course I couldn't keep going back to South America and drinking more ayahuasca to try and keep writing this book. But I'd had the confirmation that I needed to give me what I was needing to actually sit down and actually do the work. Because my father said to me, son, I sort of told my father, Dad, I've been told I'm going to write a book. And my father said, I said, I want to learn to do what you did though, Dad. And my father said, well, he said, son, all I can tell you is you're not special. And I was like, okay, Dad. You know. and I thought it was going to be a bit of a downer. And he said, son, all I can tell you is you're not special. He said, there's nothing coming to you that is not the only that which is going to come to you is going to be merited by the effort that you're willing to put in and the dedication that you're willing to put in. Anyone can write a book and anyone can give that message, but they will have to give absolute dedication to reap the kind of like the results they're looking for. And he said, the only thing that's going to do this for you is hard work and absolute focused intention, absolute dedication, and an absolute practice in what you're doing. He said, the door will not open otherwise. It cannot, because it cannot take preference over you or over someone else if you're not willing to put that work in. And so I started doing this whole practice where I get up at 5 o'clock every morning, and I did it for 4 years. I never missed a day. And if I ever did miss a day, I'd make it up. But on the whole, I never really missed a day. I was utterly dedicated, and I wrote for 6 hours every day, and I went through this whole practice. And I used the 5 o'clock in the morning process to wake up. So I was kind of in my dream time, in that kind of point where I was accessing my dreams.
Wow.
And then I got this message, and I saw Britain as a Titanic. as with its 4 funnels, but it didn't have the Titanic. It had the Great Britain. It had Great Britain on the front, and I went back to this space that I'd learned to open through my writing practice, my early morning writing practice. And I said, what does this message mean? And it said to me, Britain faces, and this was way before. This was back in 2009, 2010, when I was deep into the process of writing the book. And it just said to me, Britain comes to a juncture. It stays in Europe and weathers the storm, or it cuts its anchors and heads west. But if it heads west, its fate is sealed. And I was just like, what does that mean? And then, of course, we had Nigel Farage and everything else like that. And I was starting to say, guys, they're going to try and take us out of Europe. And everyone was saying, no, we'll never leave Europe. And I was like, mate, this is a big agenda. There's something else going on. And they're going to try, and this is not like Britain wants to leave. This is like Britain holding a gun at Europe saying, we're going to take our $700 trillion that we feed into Europe every year. We're going to take that $100 trillion and take it elsewhere unless you accept genetically modified food, unless you agree to fracking, and unless you sign the type of free trade deal that Canada signed, and all the rest of it. So it's really it's like forcing people to surrender their sovereignty to these free trade deals. But it's seen like the other way around, like Britain's the goodie, and Europe is the baddie. And so people, they've taken Tony Blair, who led the Iraq war, and of course, I was one of the 2 million people who protested against the Iraq war. Of course, France wouldn't even join the Iraq war, and suddenly you put Tony Blair and David Cameron as our pro-European candidates, and suddenly you've got what's called karma displacement, where suddenly you look at these two people who are supposedly the representatives of Europe. You put those two, the most two hated politicians in Britain, you put those two people up as your kind of like, stay in Europe, it's vital for the war on terror. And what's happening is suddenly you take all the hatred that you have for these two people and you direct it all at Europe, the place that is saying no to genetically modified food, no to fracking, no to polluting the water table. They're it's so obvious what was happening. And so you can imagine when we'd had the Brexit vote for the 23rd of June, I was realizing, oh my God, that's going to be the date of the flyby. It's so obvious. They know what's going on. They're using this whole thing to their advantage. So
and
I
it's
didn't
affecting
understand.
everybody emotionally, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Let me ask you something, Dave. When you see, you got the 200-day flyby. When we have this flyby, are you seeing it affect our planet with storms and floods? And are you connecting these effects on our planet like this when the flyby goes on?
Oh, massively. Because you can imagine if we, I mean, that's not the right time of the year there, but where we are there. But if you can, well, let's just go to the right side of the room. If we come over to here, to 2000, and where are we now? So obviously we had, that's 2017. So let's just come to 2018 again. You can imagine as we came around here, we had the big sighting over India. You obviously, you've got this point where it came past here, and you can imagine this has got to do this again this year, because we're now realizing that my 200-day, all I can do is kind of process the data as we're going along. We see these patterns and we kind of we make these predictions based on these patterns, but with each prediction and each sighting that comes, we get more and more and more information. So all I do is update the information. So the model is constantly changing as the patterns kind of change, and we start getting a bigger picture. But where I'm going with this is that you can imagine that in terms of weather, you can imagine when it came past here, this was the point Hawaii started erupting. So it's literally as it came past, rather than we're seeing a volcano that is experiencing, say we get a CME, a coronal mass ejection from the sun, and it sends out an electromagnetic pulse coming right out, and it excites the magma in our Earth, and it excites the magma in our Earth, And so the magma gets excited, like when you boil water in a kettle, it suddenly all gets excited and it expands. And that expansion causes the valves on our Earth, these volcanoes, to release pressure. Now that's normally like a big boom, like all the volcanoes we ever see. It's like an instantaneous boom, like we saw with Krakatoa, where it just blew its top.
Yeah.
Earlier in, completely. We were told that's a landslide, by the way. That was a mudslide. You look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Krakatoa's
if you look
gone.
if you look at Google Earth, half of the darn volcano is gone. The whole
The
side
whole
of the
top of
mountain.
it.
Yeah, it's
Totally.
like a mudslide.
A
Excuse me.
mudslide. Look at it. It's completely blown its top off.
Right.
It's
Talk about
not
downplaying
a
it, right?
volcano.
The Landia States is completely gone too. It's nothing but a volcano field.
Well, that's it. So you can imagine when we saw Hawaii at this point here erupting, it constantly it was spewing out magma like Niagara Falls, more than Niagara Falls, for 6 weeks constantly. That wasn't just a sudden release. That was a constant, and it came out of many, many different fissures all over. So we know it was a constant pull for a long period of time. Now, and then of course it came around to this point here, to like September, where we had the big sighting over India, and then of course I'd made a video saying, okay guys, we had a massive sighting, but we can now expect a massive ocean. I made a video saying we can expect massive oceanic kind of like anomalies. And of course, in this video, you literally see this guy after the tsunami. Well, during the tsunami, he is bareback riding his house in a massive liquefaction earthquake. He's bareback riding his house, filming it. He's riding his house, he's being overtaken. He's being overtaken by his neighboring hills, and he's riding his house in a liquefaction earthquake to a coming tsunami. Just like utterly beyond comprehension. And then you can imagine, as we come up to this point here, let's just come back. We're just going past that. Sorry.
Actually, we just had a lady, was today, I think, that her house went down the mountain in California and just crumbled, and actually she survived it. Everyone heard her screaming for help, and they ran over there and saw her hand sticking out. They got her out. She looks like she's been beat with a baseball bat. But could you imagine having your house fall down a hill?
Was that utterly... Where was that at?
That was in California, because they're having the massive rain and flooding right now.
Oh, and, yeah.
So this just happened.
House, it happened yesterday or this morning, I think it was. It was on the news tonight, where her house went down the hill in a mudslide, and then after they got her out, because the house was just crumbled when it got to the bottom, and then they showed her, and her face was just all black and blue. It's a miracle that she survived that. But after that, they went around and started telling everybody to get out of their houses, because they felt that the foundations were given out and the houses are going down the hill.
Oh my goodness me. Well, look, I'm just going to come forward, because I just want to answer that question that you put forward. Can we see, if we come here and we look at this, can you see as this approaches Earth?
Yeah.
I'm of a mind that it's pulling. We have two fundamental things really happening here. We have, as this approaches, it's pulling the bottom, the south pole of our planet towards it, and it's pushing our north pole in effect away. So what happened was, as it went past, our north pole was plunged deep into the winter aspect, deeper than it normally goes, but our south pole was pulled much closer towards the sun. So Australia and the southern aspect of our globe was getting seriously pounded by a much more intense summer. So you can see that. But then you've also got the effect that because of all these earthquakes, especially under not just the earthquakes that are around the that we see around the Ring of Fire, around the Pacific, but the seamounts or the underwater volcanoes between, there's a massive 4,600 line of volcanoes which sits on a fault line called the Emperor Hawaiian Seamount Chain, which literally runs up from Hawaii, the biggest volcano in the world, right up to what's called the Kamchatka Peninsula, which is the kind of arm that comes down from Russia that sits between sort of like, you've got Japan and sitting to the left, to the west, and then to the east. From that perspective, you've got British Columbia and Alaska coming down to Canada, and America coming down there. And where those two, where the kind of like the north of the Pacific Basin comes up and it meets on that kind of like that curtain shape there, right at the very top, that's the Kamchatka Peninsula coming down from Russia, and that's where the biggest volcano in the northern hemisphere is. Now,
and that's active now, right, Dave?
I believe that's active. I mean, basically
yeah, I
had
interviewed Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and he doesn't live far from there, and he confirmed with me that volcano is active now, and he said that it's going to blow. He said it's going to blow.
Yeah,
well, I think they're all going to blow at the same time too.
Well, they really are, but also under the ocean, where the area where they called it the blob, which was where you got this massive algae growth coming up because of the intense heat that's coming up from the ocean. Now, the ocean temperatures have risen by a massive degree. The actual atmospheric temperature hasn't gone up overall more than 1 degree in 100 years, and yet the ocean temperatures have gone up way more than, it's like about 10, 12. It's massive amount. It varies obviously, but it has gone up absolutely massively. So this isn't kind of reflecting in our understanding of what's happening with the solar radiation, because we're told we're going for a grand solar minimum, which is why it's getting so hot. And which is why it's boiling the oceans, and you've got all these earthquakes going off. No one's willing to talk about that. It's just like you've got a table, because if you question that, you're going to damage the nuclear industry, even though people can't see the logic in that. But you've got these under the ocean volcanoes also, and they're boiling the water, and they're sending massive amounts of moisture going up. Now you can imagine in this situation here, where you've got all this moisture because of all this seismic activity that we're not allowed to talk about going on, it's creating all this moisture. It's very warm. It's coming up. It's hitting this massive cold front, because you've got to remember that if you're getting vast amounts of snow is ultimately water. It's moisture. It has to come from somewhere. So you've got vast amounts of moisture coming up. And it's hitting this cold front, turning into record amounts of snow. So these things are, I'd said, guys, you're going to prepare for massive snowfall. Do you remember I'd made a video and I'd said, go out and get salopettes and everything else like that, get prepped up. Of course, if this thing has gone past us now, we can start expecting that our South Pole is going to start getting tugged more towards this direction, away from the sun, which is going to change it's not going to put it that far, but it's going to basically bring us into, it's going to take us into a kind of a subtle, like late February spring effect sort of thing now, because certainly here I'm still up in the mountains here. I've got to head back now, but here it's just like, honestly, everyone's walking around in t-shirts. It's been so hot the last few days, and yet at night it's obviously freezing, but in the day it's so hot you're walking around in t-shirts. Insane. 1 minute it's just like sub-zero.
What I've noticed here in Michigan is that all the normal weather that usually comes across the middle of the state is going way below us and going across the middle of our country, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah. You've also heard about Australia was getting temperatures almost 400 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yes.
Burning.
And
brush.
The animals in Australia are just falling. They're falling over and dying.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how much more we can take of this. Nothing surprises me anymore, but I'm like, wow, there's just so much wow factor out there.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for that amazing shot. I've got my Mavic Pro drone that I've got it unlocked to hit 22,000 feet. I'm hoping to catch some cool foot shots with that at the right when the time shows up.
22,000 feet.
22,000 feet.
That's utterly insane.
Yeah, I go cloud surfing with it, man. It's crazy.
That's
When's
insane.
our next flyby, Dave? What do you got for our next flyby?
Well, you see, that's where I was going with this whole Brexit thing, is that, you know, it's not so much about when our next flyby is. It's what we choose to, it's like the narrative that we choose to follow right now, and what we give our energy to right now. Now, at the moment, Britain is in this situation where it's decided, I call it karma displacement, where at the moment, that karma, even though Britain invaded, our governments led, or NATO and British and American governments led the, say, invasion against Iraq. That wasn't the people. The people more than demonstrated they were not behind that war. Everyone demonstrated, everyone who could go out there. But how do you then transfer that karma back so people can take on that karma, so the negative reaction can be met by, so the people can absorb that? Because if you imagine if the people chose not to absorb that karma, that has to be settled. That is a debt that has to be settled. No one knows the exact amount of depleted uranium that was dumped on Iraq in the form of depleted uranium bombshells, but by some estimations, because of the vast amounts of by the vast amounts of cancers and the vast amounts of kind of like disease associated, because of the calculations they did after Hiroshima, and the type of diseases that are occurring dwarf what happened in Hiroshima. They were able to sort of, like, some people were predicting that it's like 20,000 times more radioactive waste than was generated by the Hiroshima bomb was dumped on Iraq in the form of depleted uranium bombshells. I mean, no one knows. I mean, the official figures of what the government, the amount of depleted uranium they used in terms of tons, it's absolutely mental. It's absolutely horrifically mental. But we don't know the real figures. They obviously, they're going to distort everything else and that sort of stuff. And this is the Queen's biggest industry, and the whole Brexit thing plays into this. And this is always how I was given this message. This is how I discovered Planet X. I was told we approach a wall, nothing gets past it. And I constantly asked, when I was in that writing process, what is the wall? What is the wall? And I was told, finish South America, finish the book, all will become apparent. So I finished the book about South America. And at the end of it, I was shown this vision where I saw Planet X flying by, and in this dream, and it blocked out the sun. Everyone was really scared because there was no sunlight. And then when I came out of the dream, I said, it misses, doesn't it? And the message I was given was, yes, it misses. It is not human karma. It is deemed, you're not a race of war, but you are a race subverted with war. And we have to, we as a race, me as from my country, as a nationality, but as a race, we also have to realize that this is a story that they're throwing at us. And if we don't buy that story, we don't have to engage that karma. We literally do not have to engage that karma. We don't have to go down that corridor.
We need to stop participating in their negativity, don't you think? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, what they're doing here in the United States is nothing but child sacrifice with the abortion. And they've just changed the law that now they're going to abort babies after being birthed, and they're going to snip the spinal cord. That they passed that law in New York City, and they're trying to pass it in West Virginia. They say a newborn child does not have the right to life, and they're actually, as soon as the baby's born, they're snipping the spinal cord. This is satanic sacrifice ritual. The negative karma we're putting out into the universe is going to come back to this planet, and we are going to suffer for it. How any mother can allow someone to do that? Absolutely, it's murder, and they legalized it. Now, Trump is trying to get that law reversed, but as of now, they are doing this to newborn children. That is satanic sacrifice. They're sacrificing the blood of these children.
Who
Now,
endorsed it though? Who?
well, legislation of New York. You can go to New York and have your baby, and they'll snip the spinal cord after the baby's born. And Hillary Clinton that was one of
Oh,
her big campaign things, was that a child has no right to life right up to birth. Well, this is what they're doing over here, Dave. They're actually allowing babies to be born and snipping the spinal cord, killing that baby.
oh my God, that's just murder. That's just
Yes,
blatant murder.
yes. God have mercy on us. I think that the United States is going to suffer for this evil that's been brought about upon our country. And Lord, have mercy on us for what they're doing.
Oh my God, I had no idea. I had no idea you could do it after the baby's born.
Yes. And the thing is, they're trying to pass this in Virginia now. Virginia governor says he wants it there. And you can't tell me that kind of that's negative energy that goes out into our universe, isn't going to come back to this planet. It is.
Well, I think what they're trying to do, I think as much as what they're trying to do is they're trying to make the people rise up in anger and revolution and do this, because once you're angry and you pick up the guns and you get aggressive, they are masters at violence and aggression. They do it better than anyone. And if they can make the people rise up and get angry, that's why I feel they're doing all this sort of stuff. It's all about leading you into a place of blame and hate and anger. And actually, I mean, how many women really would just go to that much trouble, have your baby born, and then kill it? How could you live? How could any human live with that? Is there
I don't know.
anyone that can actually do that? I can't
I
imagine
don't
there's
know.
any woman that would do that, because there'd be so many people lined up to there'd be
Well,
so many
Dave,
people lined up.
before they passed that, up to 8 months, they were giving women salt shots in the stomach, having them go through labor, and the baby's born dead. That's murder too.
Oh, oh, it's so wrong.
Yes,
So
yes.
wrong.
There
Okay.
was a doctor. There was a doctor down in Texas that they finally charged him with murder. And the women that were working at that abortion clinic, now why they didn't speak up? They said, "Oh, I thought something didn't seem right about it." And he was performing the salt shot abortions. These babies were still alive, and he was taking the I don't know, some type of instrument and puncturing the soft spot in their skull to kill them. And these women are watching all this happen, these women that work at these abortion clinics, and they're like, "Well, it didn't seem right to me, but he's the doctor." I mean, come on.
Come on, just give her like a bang.
Honest to God, are you that
But
stupid?
what they're trying to do is, we've also got to realize that humanity is not the nasty race that they want us to believe that we are. And they want to throw a story onto us that we are a degenerate, nasty race of people, and we're not. We're just not. We're not these evil people. They're throwing a story at us, trying to make us believe that we are wrong. And you see, if they can get these stories out there to believe that we are these horrible, horrible beings, then they can get our permission to deal with us. Did you hear Bill
Well,
Gates openly saying, Evolutionary Arts Channel put it up recently, and he was just saying, through the world population's kind of gone over 7 billion or coming up to 8 billion or whatever he was saying. He said with with vaccinations, we can bring that down.
yeah, and with abortion, I mean, that's what it's all about. They want the planet for themselves, and let's not let anybody else live here. So we won't even give a newborn baby a chance to live. We'll just get rid of them. That's their way of controlling the numbers. I mean, I look at it this way: if you don't want your child, many people out there do. Just give it to them, Or you know what? If you don't want to have babies, do something about it before you get pregnant.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for murdering your child. None at all.
No. 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 It's quite a full-on thing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, and they're so ignorant to not realize that you're going along with the satanic agenda of blood sacrifice. That's what it is. It's a blood sacrifice. And what they want these newborn babies for, and people don't realize this, is they want the blood of that child because the satanic agenda feels that the innocence of a child's blood gives them energy and power. So they want the blood of these babies, and then they want to harvest the organs. So, I mean,
Oh,
anyone that will go and do this is going along with the NWO satanic agenda, is what they're doing. But I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl halftime show this year, but I just couldn't believe it where they show a meteor coming in and it hits the stage and goes boom, and out comes the guy who's singing out of the hole. It's like, what the heck is this about? They aren't throwing that in our face, are they? And then here's another one. The guy, I don't even remember who the singer was because I didn't watch the show, but I did see a video. The guy that was the lead singer or whatever, the reason they picked him is because the last album he did, he's kissing another woman and they're both covered in blood, showing that he goes along with their agenda with the blood sacrifice. That's why they had him. I mean,
oh my
and
God.
all these people are in the United States are like, cool, man, the Super Bowl, gotta watch the show. It's the best show they ever, and you're like, hello, dummy, duh, wake up. Let me
It's
ask
fun.
Jeff what he thinks about that. He muted himself. What do you think about all that hoofala, Jeff?
Yeah, it's so in our face with the blood stuff. There's a YouTuber I watch from time to time. It's like Call for an Uprising, and he's always showing people bathing in blood, and yeah, it's sick and very depressing. And I was watching a movie about that doctor that who was routinely snipping spines. It was the sickest thing, and it was an open court. And it finally started turning the hearts of people who are like hardcore pro life, not pro life, but whatever, the pro death, to finally like, wow, didn't know that's what it was, what's going on behind it. This stuff needs to be seen. It needs to be exposed because it's just sick.
Well, what gets me is the people that go, wow, this is really cool entertainment, and they don't see the true agenda or meaning behind it. I mean, it's like if you put the pieces together, they're throwing it in our face. And one of the things that I've noticed this month is every end of the world movie has been on Showtime or History Channel. Just last night they had the Knowing. You know that movie, The Knowing?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, they had the movie
Yeah.
The Knowing on. Have you ever seen the movie The Road?
No, I missed that one. Is that another apocalyptic movie? I mean,
Oh my God. The movie The Road is after everything happens, and this man and his son are trying to get over to the ocean. He wants to show his son the
oh
ocean.
yeah. I saw that one.
Yeah, that's The
I
Road. Yeah, and they're showing all of these movies this month.
Oh yeah, have you guys seen the Sun Simulator commercial?
No.
You haven't seen that?
No, what? You enlighten us.
Um, yeah, you can go to AO predictive programming. I showed it in a video, but basically it shows these two guys that are working for an electrical company called AO, and they're sitting in a coffee shop, and the sun is flickering, like going off and on, and they have the kind of start to play this creepy music, like in like this little diner, and these two guys look at each other because they're like, and then it finally like it's flickering, and so okay, let's go. And they get the little text message from their boss, and they drive up to a warehouse, and they go into this warehouse, and they go to get a forklift, and there's a bunch of suns up at a shelf, and you look at it, and they zoom in. It's this huge sun, probably like 10 feet in diameter, maybe 12, and it's in a cardboard box, and it's like 674 quadrillion watt light bulb. And then they drive out in this little van, and they plug this thing in, and then right when they turn this thing off, you're ready? 1, 2, 3, boom. They unplug the light bulb, like unscrew the sun simulator. Like just get on a couple of ladders, like it's just like above the ground. It's kind of funny. And it's the morning sun. And for like a few minutes, everybody looks around and there's total darkness while they're swapping out the new bulb. Right? I mean, you don't make this stuff up. I mean, I hear I'm talking about the sun simulator, and there's the commercial. I mean, maybe you could maybe I could find on YouTube and share the screen. It's pretty hilarious. And I could play my version. I didn't get a copyright strike. This isn't even YouTube anyway, so it doesn't matter, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's. I think that's the only reason why they play it, just to brainwash us and numb us down to reality. What's really going on? And another one, I think what's going to happen is because of all the drone ships and everything is happening. You remember did you guys watch Chicken Little, like the cartoon, the movie? Do you remember the show where like this hexagonal thing falls out of the sky and hits Chicken Little on the head?
Yes.
Right? And it was actually like it ended up being a part of the UFO. And they's looking out, and all of a sudden, like the fake sky was really like a whole bunch of UFOs that were like knit together, hiding the sky above it. And then finally, like they started just unmasked themselves and decloaked and started attacking people. You remember, right? I mean, how close is that to reality? Right? So you have TR-3Bs cloaking this incoming system. And so when just before it gets visible, these things are going to decloak, and then you got basically Project Blue Beam, the fake alien invasion, the thing that Ronald Reagan threatened us with the, it's amazing how much we set aside our differences if we had an alien threat. Right? And just we'd all put aside our nuclear weapons because, so we can all fight a united cause to fight the alien, the big boogeyman, right? So
well,
yeah, go ahead.
It's so many commercials and TV programs now. When they had the global awards, they said they all wore black this year. Everyone wore black because they wanted to show us that they're mourning for us because we're close to the end.
Right. Uh-huh.
Oh, good.
Well, you know that their favorite colors are black and red, right? So you always see that.
Also, when Trump did the address, when he did his speech that night, all of the women that were in the Democratic Party all wore white. And when he said he was going to reverse the abortion law, he was going to go to the Supreme Court and try to have that changed. Everybody applauded except all them women dressed in white. They all sat there with their arms crossed like, no, you aren't. And I thought, and how many of you are mothers and grandmothers and aunts? Would you feel like, that would be right to murder all your children? But they just think they have the right to murder children.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. Hey, if you guys want, I could if you share the screen for a second, it's a 2-minute commercial, like 1 minute commercial for the flickering.
Okay, now you know where you hit the microphone? 2 things over, it says share screen. Click on that and you'll have a hold of the screen.
Okay, let's see, share this real quick. Okay, you see my desktop?
Screen. Yep.
Okay, here we go. Here's the commercial. I don't know if you can hear the sound, but I'll see if I can Can you hear me talking on there?
I can hear you talking, but we can't hear the video. So you're going to have to tell us what's going on.
Okay, I'll just pause at the key points. So these are the two workers that work for the sun, the fake sun, right?
Yeah.
So the sun is flashing on the horizon. It's in the early morning. So their little pager goes off. They get up. They go to the warehouse. Now they're looking up at the. They're gonna go get a new light bulb. And look at the wattage output on the sun here. 174 quadrillion watts. You see that?
Yeah, I see that.
I wonder if there's like cryptic messaging in there, like G2V and all these other little things. I kind of fast forward, just kind of get the gist of it. Now, here's the point where they unscrew the light bulb, and then the whole world goes into darkness, right? They swap this thing out. They get the new bulb out. These two guys rolling this thing out, and they basically turn this thing back on.
Wow.
And that was put out by AO Predictive Programming. See if I had the original footage in there. Yeah, crazy, huh? Yeah, I just thought I'd share that.
I must have missed that one. That one got right by me. So basically, what they're telling us about are the 3 days of darkness, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Well, look at China. They're already launching a artificial moon. Why? Well, their excuse is to light the night sky to save on electrical power. I guess it's cheaper to have a moonlight light up the city than having all the city lights on. Or could it be weaponized like a little mini Death Star, like Darth Vader type thing?
Right.
You know. So, yeah. So it's basically space war. I think it's pretty crazy. So if they could get a moon up there, and they announced that they're launching this thing, and they also talked about launching. I had a hard time finding the article. The Sun simulator, which was the cold fusion reactor in space. And I'm like, launching it in space, a cold fusion reactor. Why do they want a cold fusion reactor in space? What is that going to do? Why would you do that? What would be the purpose? Sounds like a weapon to me. To have that kind of power hovering above everybody, all the nations.
I have not a clue.
I'm going to pull up the article for it if you want, but it's there. We have
Okay.
all this free energy that we have that they're using space-based energy, basically taking solar cells. And I did a video on this too. Actually, I could go back to sharing the screen, but I don't know if I had the material pulled up. But you heard about the Santa Rosa fires, right?
Yes.
Well, that was their I actually downloaded the PDF file that had 1 year earlier that they had. The entire evacuated zone was exactly the zone that was rezoned for rebuilding. Now keep in mind, they were planning on, why would you rezone a densely populated area? That doesn't make any sense. As a developer.
Agenda 21.
Exactly. And now to this very
Agenda
day.
21.
But PG&E, that they had brokered a deal with NASA a year earlier for space-based weapons, and they had a PG&E had actually was working with NASA to creating microwave energy in space through solar cells and microwaving it back to the Earth, doing a thing called rectennas, which basically rectifies the microwave energy into AC voltage. And keep in mind, that was a 1 billion watt beam. That's from the NASA site. I'm not making this up. You can actually watch it from the Department of Energy website. They advertised that they were doing this. The key thing was this rectenna that they were beaming the energy was from the Mojave Desert was the target to create that power to see that it worked. And then they were going to move it to a place called Sebastopol, which was only like 10 miles from the Santa Rosa fires. Now, see, that's kind of scary if you think about that. That means that they could just pivot that energy from the Mojave Desert which is the Southern California, all the way up to the Santa Rosa area, microwave energy.
Well, have you ever looked at some of the Plain Truth videos he's doing on the Paradise Fires? He had just interviewed a mother and a daughter that ended up escaping because what they did was they had blocked off. There were only two ways to get out of that town. And they blocked one way off and told everybody they had to turn around and go back into the fire to get out the other way. They let this woman through because she said, look, I don't have enough gas to go back through town. You got to let me out. So they let her out, her and her daughter, and they escorted them out. But what this woman talked about was that the PG&E was in that town for 2 weeks before that fire started, telling everybody that their batteries in their smart meters were faulty and they needed to change them. She also said that she would take a back road to work when she went to Orville to work, and she's seen them, PG&E everywhere, going down into the sewers before this fire. Also, she said all of the hotels and motels were booked up with FEMA people a week before the fires came out.
Wow.
So, and then when he goes in and films, he goes up there and he films what's going on because they wouldn't let these people back in to look at their houses or anything. FEMA had set up a camp in there, and they had National Guard block off. They wouldn't let anybody into their own homes. The only one that was getting in there were the tow truck drivers. He interviewed a tow truck driver, and they said like 80 people lost their lives. He said there were skeletons everywhere, up on the hillsides, people burned in their cars. There was a school bus full of children that was burned.
Yeah, that's so
there were
sick.
people burned everywhere. There were thousands of people that lost their lives in that fire.
There are tens of thousands of people. They totally hit the death rate.
Right. Well, what he said
Dobbs.
was 26,000 people, he's estimating, died in that fire. And the reason FEMA set up this was his what he figures is going on is what they saw, what the tow truck driver saw, was they were taking them smart meters and ripping them off the burnt houses. The houses that anything that was left as far as a smart meter, they were getting that out of there. You want to know why? Because that's evidence.
Right. That's what I heard about the Santa Rosa fire, that they were the people that did not get their homes burned did not have smart meters. It was a way that they could target the very home.
Right. And that what they were saying, the people that did get out, they said that it was like the fire was coming down the electrical lines and then starting on the side of the house. It was not the wind blowing the fire across, like a wildfire or like a forest fire. They were actually seeing big blue flashes coming off of the wires, and then all of a sudden everything would be catching on fire. So those people didn't have a chance. And when they tried to flee, they were actually making them turn around and go back into the town, into the fire. And that was another, I think, a ritual sacrifice. This way, the more people that died, the less people to fight for that land to get back.
Yeah, and I heard they're digging for gold now.
Yeah, that's what I heard, that town was on top of a gold mine, and that was one of the main reasons why they, and they're having everybody sign off on their property. They're giving them, I don't know, 50 cents on the dollar or something like that. But what they're doing is they're telling everybody that the land is contaminated and that they've got to let FEMA clean the land. And
but they never will
negotiate. Right. Well, what they're doing, telling them is they'll negotiate with their insurance company for the cleaning of the land before they can come back. And why, by the time they get done with all these charges, nobody ends up with nothing. So that he was trying to tell people, don't sign that paperwork. You're going to lose everything. Well, they won't let me come back unless I do. Don't be so quick to sign. But I don't think it would matter because, they've pretty much got control of everything anyways. As far as I'm concerned, and I think they're going to continue because after that happened, The governor of California came out and said, there's been many, many fires and expect many, many more. He's standing right there. How can you tell somebody expect more? Because, well, our next one is planned over here. If
Oh
I
yeah.
lived in California, I'd be packing up and moving the hell out of that state.
You know what? That reminds me a little bit. Kind of going back to the sun simulator. But do you remember that James Bond movie where they had the sun simulator turned on? I think it was.
No.
Oh man, it was pretty big, and it showed the now for the true purpose of the sun. Do you remember the name? It was Live and Die Another Day. And in the movie that James Bond was playing, it was Pierce Brosnan, and they were in total darkness, and they go, check out the power. I can't remember the name of it. There was a name for that sun, and they turned this thing on, and they had light, and whoa, that's really cool, and they could harness the true power. And then, like in a different scene, they showed with the Japanese scientists now to show the true power of this I don't know what they called it, the fake sun or something, and they were basically trying to zap 007, and it was weaponized, and this big laser comes all the way down out of the sky, and it was chasing him across this ice sled thing. It was pretty crazy. Again, more predictive programming, isn't it?
Right. Well, another thing, when he was interviewing some of the people that did flee out of paradise, him and what's her name? I can't think of her name right now. I've interviewed her before. But anyways, they had a bunch of people that survived, and they were interviewing them, and they were asking them what was going on as you were leaving. And some of them actually had to get a car and run. One guy had his motorcycle on the back of a truck. He yanked his motorcycle off because he said his car caught on fire and the tires were melting, the rims were melting, and he had to bust through fences to try to get out of there because there was no way you could get out through the road. They had the road blocked. And he said everything was on fire around him. People were on fire, and they were chasing him, trying to grab him off of his motorcycle so they could get on his bike. He said the last thing he remembered is seeing people behind him just get engulfed in fire as they were chasing him, trying to grab him off of his motorcycle. I mean, these people are never going to get over what they went through, and I, for the life of me, do not know why they're hanging around, because they're hanging around a danger zone. And the other thing is, to cover up the fact that so many people died, they said that the people that were at Walmart, because they said, oh, all the homeless people set up tents at Walmart. Those weren't people from the Paradise Fire. They were just homeless people that they brought in to make it look like, look, here's some survivors. Those people were not from Paradise, they said. They did not survive the fire. They just made it look like, oh, look, these people are here and they survived the fire. I mean, it's such a sham. And I'm going to tell you right now, over here where I live, they're forcing smart meters on us all. They're forcing Deborah Tavares. That's who it was that he.
Oh yeah, Dave Dobbs can't hear right now. You want to give the microphone power back?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna unmute you, sweetie. You muted yourself.
Oh yeah,
okay,
I just
can you
muted
hear?
earlier. Sorry. Yeah. No, I was saying we've got the same. Can I just ask you, because I was listening. I was listening to that about these smart meters, and there's this massive protest that's happening in France. They've got a special name for it, and there's all this kind of graffiti thing, and it's a little kind of, I can't remember what they call them in France, but I kept asking. I was like, what is it? What are these kind of like these protest kind of tags all over the place, and these protests against these smart meters? But listen, I'm just hearing you. I've just been listening to you. I couldn't comment then actually because of my microphone, but I was so shocked at what you were saying there. I mean, that belongs in a horror movie. That is
somehow, Dave, they have tied in the lasers, the microwave lasers, and the satellites. I think it's the satellites. What do you think, Jeff? I think it's satellites.
Yeah, I do think it's satellites. I have video footage of it that happened when it was in San Diego fire, and the guy has his camera. You could see this thing flashing, sending pulses of light beams to the San Bernardino fires. And I wonder if I could pull that footage up, and I'll share the screen. But you keep talking.
Yeah, and what they've done is they've turned it into a weapon where they can ignite the whole darn neighborhood. And and it's so telling when these two ladies that go the back roads to the next county to work, and a lot of people don't travel the back roads to go to work, but she didn't like getting on the freeways because she didn't like all the traffic. So she'd take more time and go the back roads, and here she's seeing PG&E going down in the sewers. What the heck are they doing? And then they came to her house and to a lot of other people's houses saying, oh, your battery needs to be changed in your smart meter. It's effective. It's defective. And she said, well, I just had a new one put on about 8 months ago. How could it be defective? Now, they just changed my smart meter about 4 months ago, and I just got a letter saying that I got a new one coming now for some reason. Because I went into the opt-out program, and it said even if you were in the opt-out program, which is where they're supposed to turn off the where it sends out the signal, they got to come up and read it. But they said even if you're in the opt-out program, you still got to take this new one. And I thought, oh, why? Because the one you gave me don't work with the satellites, the satellite laser, or what? I mean, I don't know. But and then there was one guy who was off the grid, and he said because he was off the grid, he was listed as a threat to our country.
Oh my God. You know that they're kind of like, they can tell exactly. Imagine if they could actually make, because I've experienced this. My truck, when I made my first video, when I made my first YouTube video about Planet X, immediately after, my truck hadn't been used. It was just sitting cold outside, spontaneously combusted. And that was my home. I should have been sleeping in that.
I heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, and I made a video. My friend came out and said, Dave, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to get my camera and video it. I was like, this is really quite intriguing. My van's just gone up. I should have been in it, but I was staying in my friend's place. Now, that would have killed me. That would have literally killed me. So now you can imagine that if these smart meters can tell about everything that you're doing. Most people in a fire, you know how they die? Smoke inhalation.
Smoke inhalation.
Smoke inhalation. That's what kills them. They suffocate way before they kind of burn. Now you can imagine if you can actually ignite a fire when people are sleeping, or when they're not awake, or when that they're not going to be able to deal with it. You can start a fire when that they're asleep, because you can tell by the electrical appliances, because you can tell every electrical appliance that they're using at that time.
Right, exactly.
Dave, you need to go to a Plain Truth, his channel, and go back and look at some of his videos, because he had people that were getting out of there that took their cell phones and videoed some of this starting, and there were actual videos of like a pine tree lit up blue, just went blue, and then poof, it was in flames. So
yes,
what was
and then burning from the inside out in multiple occasions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. People just don't believe it. It's just people can't believe that there's that there could be such conspiracies, and yet, the whole agenda. I mean, I was a fan of Agenda 21 when it first came out. Do you know that? I was a total fan of it. You know
what? If you listen to what Deborah Tavera says, they plan on reducing the population. 2/3 of the United States will be wasteland, or you won't be allowed to go on it. They're going to build walls around these little sections of the city. They got the stack and pack 'em apartments that are like
stack 'em and pack 'em, exactly.
Yeah, stack 'em and pack 'em. It's like the size of a box trailer for a semi, and they're going to stack them all up, and that's where you live. There'll be no cars. You're not allowed to go outside of the wall. If you go outside of the wall of the city, you'll be executed. And mainly 2/3 of the United States will be given right back to the animals. And you know why they want that? Because on the other side of that wall, they'll be mining for gold and oil and all that. They don't want to see that. They want the resources, and the people are in the way.
Yeah. Oh, I've got that footage from the can you guys, from the
Okay, go ahead,
simulator.
share screen. Go
Let's see
ahead,
if I
share
can.
screen with us.
Okay. Let's see if I can get the. This guy was. This was, I believe, the San Bernardino fire, and this was. I'm gonna list Rodrigo Contreras Lopez caught this. So let me share the screen here. Let me know. You should be able to see it now. We're good?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
here we go. This is from Facebook user, and I've been following this for a while, but here we go. Let's watch this.
Is that?
See that thing pulsing like there's a lens in front of it too.
Oh yeah, look
Yes.
at that.
You're like, and you know, people don't grab their camera unless there's something to see, right? One more time, we got something.
Wow.
I have something else too that was brought to my attention. The guy from the UK. You could find it on YouTube. Just type in Jeff P is right. Actually, just Google it and you will find the footage. But when I made that's why there's a lens in front of this thing, would probably focus this energy. And then there was some other footage that we caught of the hexagonal pattern is exactly what we see from the space station as well. And there were some other ones too from Australia, but that was some crazy footage. But
wow.
Now look at this. This guy from Birmingham Skies. Now he's caught these X's here, right? This is the real footage in real time, and I'm gonna show it slowed down and see what you missed. These X's appearing, right? You just happen to, if you look real carefully, you can see what looks like smoke or ghost-like something that flies in front of the screen. But there's one time very particular at the 50-second mark, roughly, was that parabolic light shape that whizzed across the camera almost in a blink of an eye, but I caught it. So there's the original footage. You could see the wispy stuff flying in front of the screen right there. And believe me, he's not smoking cigarettes, okay? In fact, you could see the reflection of him walking in front of this car. You could see that he's holding this, his cell phone with both of his hands, right? This is where it gets interesting. Right here it comes. Did you see that?
Yeah.
It was in a blink of an eye, but I actually re-recorded it. Here's the same thing slowed down 8 times. Okay, I'm going to enlarge the screen. It's the same thing. You can do it. I just record it, slow it down with that little gear, and watch this. You see that?
Yes.
Right? It kept recycling. If he would have stayed there, I believe he would have kept seeing it over and over again, but he moved.
So do you think that the sun simulator that they've got up there is blocking out a lot of us being able to see what's coming?
Yeah, just by simply widening it out. They can make it look much bigger than it really is if something's next to the sun. In fact, a lot of people are showing stuff that is next to the sun because it's so close and so bright.
Yeah, I think so as well.
And I don't know if you guys, have you, Dave, anybody seen that X going across the cliff? And you ever seen that one? That was over in Scotland.
X going off the cliff.
The X going down a cliff, a giant X.
Oh yeah. No, I did see that one. I remember that one.
I was like, I don't know how you can argue with that, right? And I zoomed in and try to make it perfectly clear. This one here. Look at, I could zoom it in for you. That's what it looks like on the cliff, right?
Yeah.
Clearly a giant X. Let's see if I can show this. Yeah. Yep. Sun simulator. Let me scroll forward to the X going down the cliff here. In fact, you
can see the beam of light coming down.
Yeah, I mean, there it is, a big old X. How could you deny that?
Wow.
There is something in front of the sun, plain and simple. Now I've seen it with my own 2 eyes now. It was showing this strange. Oh, and then there was this article too. Now this kind of touches on those fires, that this mystery drawback, whatever. I forgot what language they're talking in, but it was a huge mystery. And if you translate this, it says suddenly burned. Okay, so this is something that didn't happen gradually. There it is. Suddenly it happened, right? So I hit the translator, right? Suddenly it happened. Remember that. The trampoline burned and their furniture burned. So these investigators came out. Now, there was another. Now, keep in mind that these are old windows too. And if it was, I kept emphasizing that I'd suddenly, then why did it burn like years ago? Why did it burn now? It shouldn't have been sudden at all.
Yeah.
And so the trolls come out and said that the heat flexed that window in the shape of a magnifying glass and burned that thing like at least 70 feet away. Like, right? That's their
and look at
official
the
story,
X's
no
on
joke.
the building.
Yeah. And I've seen that. You put your hand on it, it's pretty hot. And it actually does not rotate. The light inside it will. And then I've seen people submitting footage like after the fact. They do return to a normal square shape about a month later. But I just haven't made videos on the fact. And here the guys will come out saying that the shade was down, it heated up the window. But look, it even burned the the styrofoam. See how it melted it?
Yeah.
As it traveled across.
Yeah.
You know, why would that be sudden? It should have been doing it the very first year it did it, not like that day. See, it burned the lawn furniture. It was burning everything.
Well, just like last year, my co-host, it's not with me anymore, Robert Pepino, he's in Arizona, and he was sending me pics in my email of the street lights melting. You know, the cover around the light for the glare. Those were melting. Mailboxes were melting. You know, the plastic lids that go over the dumpsters, those were all melting. Everything was melting down there. That's not normal.
Right. Well, in my video, I kept talking about these spiraling beams of light, and I caught this on this camera here, which, by the way, they're all offline. They've been offline for a year now. You cannot watch this. They've been taken offline. And in this, you see how they spiral here? I believe that that's what this guy was looking down that barrel. So not everybody could see that unique spot, that focus. Look how it just is coming a total intensity.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like going, what would it look like if you're in that path of light? And not everybody sees that. And just to prove it to the audiences out there, look, I'll be at this website now. See here, webcam. See here, it says 65 cameras available, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many do you see there? 1, 2,
65.
3, 4, right. and
It's
and
so
look
lucky,
at
isn't it?
this one's sleeping, so that doesn't count, right? This one here, what's the date there? You see that? That was, what year is that? 2018.
2018. Yeah, last year.
Yeah, it's been down for
7.
over a year. And it's dead. And many just don't even work. Okay. And I've caught some weird, bizarre camera stuff with this stuff. And I, just before I could make a video, because it was so insane, I just want to catch it on one more camera. And before I could, the whole thing is down. And look, like half these don't even work, including the one where you caught that one where you and Steve Olson, it looked like that plasma arc between the planets. That's offline. That was this camera right here. It's gone.
Okay.
This is the one where we saw that, and it's been offline for 8-9 months now. Wow. You know, so 65 cameras we get, and they don't even, this might as well be offline too, because it's always been, this one's 90-night, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So where are we now? where do you think we are now with the whole thing? Where you think, you've been watching my timeline, and I've been watching your kind of like the whole sun simulator thing and everything else like that. Where,
Well,
where do you think?
you put out a video with the earthquake, and I think you're pretty close on something. So I'm still tracking with your September 17th, and the next date would land on April 5th this year.
Hey,
That's 200
well,
years out from September 17th.
well, I mean, it's, that's the point where also, that's kind of round about the point that Steve would, I mean, I personally think that, I didn't understand it was going. It had such a big orbit before. You remember my older model? I had a much more localized orbit on one side of the solar system, and then obviously we had the big sighting on June the 17th last year, and then we obviously after all the volcanoes, like I said, in Hawaii, that were just constantly erupting. So if we, I really don't know. Like I say, I'm much more of a mind that they are going to try and drive us into a negative state, because this is what drives it. This is for me. This is a regular thing, and this is the regulating force of of Earth. I really, because that's the message I was given. I've been given this message that we approach a wall, and that nothing gets past this wall that is of war. And so, if something created humanity, the logic is whatever created humanity had to kind of have some kind of limiter, some kind of control mechanism. You've got to put brakes on it in somehow or other. And so either humanity just popped out of nowhere, and it is all just kind of an evolutionary process where we all started as a kind of an amoeba, and suddenly, hey presto, we popped into life and all the wonderful creatures, or we're intelligent design. And if we're intelligent design, there must have been some kind of like control mechanism. And if there is, then hey presto, look what we're looking at. And it
Yeah.
seems that something is driving us up against that. Something wants us to destroy ourselves and wants to destroy us. And I think one of the reasons that if you are driving something, when I said I was a fan of Agenda 21 once, it's because back in the sort of like back in the early 90s, Agenda 21, all the alternatives and the hippies were talking about it, because it was seen as this thing that was gonna
Save the planet.
bring yeah, it was going to save the planet. So it was sold to us back in those days as an environmental thing. So we kind of like, it was all the right on people were talking about it, and it's funny how, same as the carbon story, now we realize the environmentalists were right on, and they wanted to save the planet, and they were doing everything. But the science that was being fed into them from Thatcher's kind of crony, kind of like scientists, they were being paid billions and billions and billions to fudge the science. And so we are just, we are all having to kind of like, I was listening to, I can't remember his name now, but I was listening to a guy talking about, he's very kind of like, he's really kind of, he's taken the whole kind of like what I would once call, and probably still call, kind of chemtrailing. This guy was talking about it on a channel the other day, and he was basically saying that you've got to call it by its real name. It's geoengineering, and he was taking you through how very real it is and what they're up to. And he's saying that we've got to realize that they have completely taken over our scientific communities. They're buying science at every level, and we've got to up our game. We've seriously got to up our game and stop hiding behind this, oh, I don't believe in conspiracy theories, and I don't believe in that, and I don't believe in this. We've just got to see what is going on and have the courage to look at it and engage and realize not just our lives, but our genetics, our entire genetics
Yeah.
on this planet is in threat right now. And we have got to come out and have the courage to sort of like to see this and to talk about this and to acknowledge it and take it on, or we're just going to go under the wheels of this.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what
It,
led us into it. We might have.
I
Sorry,
find it
Badbaby.
interesting, Dave, that you said that your truck just burned up and you could have been in it because, I I had 300 of my shows deleted with no explanation. And in those shows was a lot of information of what's being done to humanity. I'll give you a perfect example. I did a few shows about how women are getting uterine cancer, and I connected it to that the tampons are being made out of the cotton that are being sprayed with Roundup. So basically, they're
Oh,
putting Roundup in their vaginal area, and that causes
Whoa.
cancer.
oh, it's so
Also,
obvious.
yes, this was all planned. And also, the chemicals that are in the deodorant. You're putting that deodorant on your arms, and it's right there near your lymph glands. Your lymph glands are the major connections to your whole body, and that's another cancer spreading agent. And I find it interesting because when I started finding all this stuff out, I came under severe attack. I had come home and someone put a bottle of sleeping pills on a bag of my popcorn. I started eating it and it tasted bitter, and I went out like a light. And my brother said, "That sounds like you were drugged." He said, because the doctor had given me sleeping pills when my husband first died. Everybody kept telling me I needed this, I needed that. I take one and I don't like the way these make me feel. So I had, he said, "Look in the bottle." And he said, "Are they tablet or capsule?" I said, "They're capsule." I said, "But I only took one. That was weeks ago." He goes, "Look in the bottle." I looked in the bottle, there were three. They took that whole bottle and put it on them on that popcorn, hoping that I'd eat it. And hello, Marilyn Monroe. And he said,
Whoa.
"Wow, who's doing this to you?" Then the next thing is I was having a building. I have a building off of the back of my house that has a swimming pool in it, and I was having a ceiling put in there. And the guys would come. It was in the winter, and they'd come, and they had a cone heater, and I had a wood burner out there. And there's a small kitchen in this building. And I would go out and start the wood burner and plug their cone heater in and heat up the building. So I go out there. This is a few weeks after the popcorn incident. And I bend down to plug that heater in, and I was 1 inch from plugging it in. And I went, "Oh my God, this whole building was full of gas." Somebody turned
Oh
the
my
gas on. That's how close I
God.
came to plugging that in. And it
Whoa.
would have looked like, "Oh, boom, the dumb woman didn't, blah, blah, blah." Then the next thing that happened is I have a three pump shotgun that I use to shoot skeet with my husband. So that was my gun. Obviously, they didn't think I was gun savvy. I knew that this gun took 3 shells, and I checked it out. I started checking everything. What are they messing with in my house? So it would only take two and it would jam, jam. And I was like, "I am not touching that gun. I'm not looking down the barrel. Something's wrong with it." So I gave it to my brother when he came over. I said, "Something's wrong with this gun. It's not taking 3 shells. Look at it." And he looked down the barrel and he says, "You got a gun cleaning kit?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Go get it." So I give it to him. He runs it down the barrel. Out pops a 10 gauge shell jammed in the barrel. He said,
Oh,
"Oh
can I?
my God." I don't even have a 10 gauge shotgun here. Why would I have a 10 gauge shell? You know what I mean? And he said,
Yeah.
"Oh my God." He said, "If you would have fired that gun, it would have blew up in your face."
Do you know a
Uh,
friend of mine? A friend of mine wrote a book. A friend of mine wrote a book called Bird Brain, and the Bird Brain is about a story of a Tory that leaves his entire fortune to another Tory and writes his entire family out the will. His name's Guy Kennaway. He wrote this book. He's an amazing writer. Um, and and this the guy who's going to inherit it gets wind of it, and he rams a. This is how he murders him. Exactly
right.
what you've just described there. He
Yeah.
rams the cartridge down the barrel of his
Down the
gun.
barrel.
So when he goes to shoot the pheasant, the gun blows up in his face, and
Yes.
he ironically gets reborn as a pheasant on his own land and has to go track. But that is and
Hmm.
has to
Yeah.
track that has to track it, and he's not trying to track his murder, his
Right.
murderer. He's trying to track his own stupidity. But I mean, that's attempted murder. That is
Yes.
literally. So they went
Yes.
into your house and done that.
Oh, all the time. I mean, I had poison poured in my bed. I would take care of these two elderly ladies that were an hour away, and every time I'd go take care of them, I'd come back and someone had been in my house. And I would open my underwear drawer, and there would be a hammer or a screwdriver with red paint on it, like we're gonna stab you with a screwdriver, or we're gonna hit you in the head with a hammer, make And then and they would follow me in the grocery store too. I'd be standing there at the meat counter, and someone would bump into me and go, "Look at all that blood. Did you ever see so much blood?" And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, my dad used to kick chickens' heads off. You ever see a chicken with his head cut off?" You know, I got to the point where at first it was scaring me, but
Wow.
so it got so intense for many years that I couldn't take it anymore, and I went off the air for about a year and a half. Do you know that I feel it was the Lord kept coming into my dream and telling me I had to go back on the air. And I was in tears. I would wake up at night in tears going, "No, no, make me do it. You know what they do to me?" And I had two animals killed, two of my dogs killed, murdered. And I was just scared to death to come back on the air. And then finally the Lord told me, he said, "Honey, you promised me a long time ago you'd do this." And I was like, "I did? I don't remember promising you." But the thing that I get from it is that I thought about Dolores Cannon. I tried to interview her. She did past life regression and would get messages from ETs about the the pole shift. And she said that there were souls that came to our planet in the 50s that volunteered to come here to help people go through the transition of the pole shift. They're called the Star Children. And the way I see it is we are possibly those souls that came here to help them get through this, because there are going to be those that survive, she says, and the Star Children came to help people get through it, and help those that survive. And why in the world would I be asked to keep coming back on the air? I couldn't understand why. I thought I covered everything. I thought, well, I'm repeating myself. But at that time, I knew nothing about this planet. I hadn't gotten that far yet. I had gotten about all the poisoning and how our bodies are being attacked, and all these doctors that I've interviewed, and all of that stuff has been deleted. Why would they delete it? Do they not want the truth out there? Why did they take all my shows down?
That's a huge
I
threat.
didn't get Yeah, well, you know what? I was upset about it at first, and then I thought, you know what? That's why they call me Bad Baby. I'm just going to pull my bootstraps up and re-interview everybody. I'll start on over. I'll be just that little inchworm that keeps coming up and getting you from behind. Don't
Yep.
sit down, because I might nip you in the butt, because I'm not giving up. I am not defeated. I will
Nope.
keep carrying on.
Yep.
It's funny. My guide comes to me as my guide first. First of all, the first time I ever saw my guide, it came on an ayahuasca ceremony. Not the first time, but the first time I had a real experience where I met a benevolent, if you like, a benevolent character in glorious Technicolor. He came in the form of a daffodil, and it was just this. It was this daffodil, and this it came in this form. It was a suitcase on the ground full of weapons, and then it snapped closed and it buckled over, and it kind of squeezed itself into a smaller space and a smaller space and a smaller space until it was a tiny pip, and then it shot down next to this tree and this daffodil came out. And after this I got this message from it, and went in my writing, and it was this process of a daffodil pushing through tarmac. And like a daffodil can push through kind of thick tarmac with just the tiniest amount of force. It can just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and it can eventually push through, because it just keeps on going and going and going and going. It doesn't give up. It's constant pushing. And we just got to remember that lots of little is still lots.
Yes. Well, and the thing is, they have, and this has not stopped. They have so many people on me that I got to the point where I didn't leave my house unless I absolutely had to go to the store because I was just constantly bombarded with perpetrators. And it got to the point where I can't even go to I live in the country. I live on a farm in the country. And there's a little party store over here I get my pizza from. And they even approach them people. I went over there one day to get a pizza, and it usually takes 10 to 15 minutes. It took me 45 minutes to get my pizza. And the woman running the register kept looking at me like she was scared to death. In comes a woman. She's going up and down the aisles of this little party store like she's shopping. Who shops at a hot triple the price party store for 45 minutes? And she kept looking at me, and I thought, they're up to something. They're waiting for somebody. So finally, when my pizza comes out, I get in my truck. I got a Dodge Ram pickup with 3,500 diesel. So I get in my truck, and I'm pulling out on the road, and out from a side street comes this big, huge mud truck, big black windows, bunch of guys in it, and they're coming up on the back of my truck, trying to ram me, you know. And on the way over there, I had took a dirt road, and I had a crossroad, and I just missed this big hole about 4 feet around and 2 feet deep. And I remembered that when they were trying to ram me, and I went, "Oh, you boys want to play? Follow me." So I turned down the side road, and I just floored it, man. And I get it up to about 65, and they're right on my tail, and they're beating on their dash. I'm watching them in my rearview mirror. They're beating on their dash, and I get over as close as I can to where that hole is, and I'm going, "Lord, please don't let me hit that hole. Please don't let me hit that hole." And I missed it, and they hit it square on, man. I looked, and that truck just went airborne. And then I seen it land sideways, and I could see all their heads bobbling around like a weeble wobble. And I just started laughing. I said, "And that's what you get when you mess with Badbaby."
That's some funny stuff.
Yeah.
Hazard,
well, I'm gonna have to get going, guys. It was really great talking to you.
Thanks, Jeff. You know what? We should do this again. We'll do another
Definitely.
one. We'll set it up in probably a month or so. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
That sounds brilliant. Yeah, sounds
Thank
fantastic.
you so much. What a night we had, you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, very blessed. All right, everybody. Dave, it was nice talking to you, and Badbaby. We'll see you soon. And
okay, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Nice
good night,
one,
everyone.
Jeff. Night,
Okay.
night.
Good night.
Ciao.
Well,
night,
Dave,
night.
I just want to thank you for coming on. You're such a great spirit to get up, stay up at 4 in the morning and come out here and share with us.
I must admit, I am feeling really, really tired now. It's just after the last kind of half hour, I've just been, it's been really, really kicking in because I had quite an early morning. But it's been lovely. It's been lovely coming on your show. You know, every time, because I don't spend a lot of time in America, but every time I come over to America, one thing I am aware is that America is really quite a wild country. It really is a wild country. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on, a lot of crazy energy. People have got like, you can see their kind of animal totems in their eyes sometimes. It's really, really kind of wild country. It's a wild place. And some of the stories that you're telling me just about the gun barrel and about, oh my God, all the rest of it. I mean, but then obviously we get, you know, trucks burning and blah, blah, blah here. And we've got all the same sort of kind of, we've got the same smart meters going in and it's all the same stuff that's going on. We just got to wade through it. Just got to carry on. No one gets out alive.
We're in the Matrix, aren't we, Dave?
We're just in the Matrix. Yeah, so we're just gonna have to try and get through it bit by bit. Trust in divine providence. Keep asking for divine assistance for it, because notice that all these things have happened. You've always been forewarned, and you've always been looked after, and we're always being looked after in ways that we cannot understand. And this thing might be flying by and causing havoc, but I promise you, if we can stay in our divine providence and not being taken by these stories of hate, war, divide, and all the rest of it, they're trying to drive us into anger, revolution, and anything. Stay out of them. Just stay in peace, stay in love, just be the best person you can through this. That's the best way to navigate through this. If we can stay in that space, we'll be fine. We will get through this.
Well, look at all the stuff I've gone through, and You know what? I decided a long time ago, you can do everything you've done to me, but you're never going to take my joy. You're never going to take my heart or my love. It's always going to be there. No one can take that from me. And that's what I'm going to, and that's how I make it through this. Don't, don't think you're going to change me, because it's not going to change me. I'm still who I am. I still have joy in my heart. I still have love, and I find my happiness in my own space. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm.
I know that I report a lot about all the horrible things that go on, but and it does affect us. It affects us all, but I have to stay in that place where I can center myself and stay in my happy mode. And you know how I stay in my happy mode? By having you guys here with me, because you guys generate so much love and positive feelings of energy that it helps carry me through, because that's, I think, why we are here, why you're here, why I'm here, why Jeff P's here, why Steve's here, everybody that's trying to word out about what's going on. We're all here with our positive energy, even though it's a negative subject, to help each other get through this.
And
Are you
also,
connecting with that?
I also I connect it, and so I connect it in exactly the same way, because I also understand that you can imagine that when when I first started writing, before I started really looking, when I first started writing, it just felt like I was going into this big negative process. But of course, when you go into that negative process of, you look at the woes and you look at the pains and you look at all that is subverting Earth, and it seems such a negative process. But when you look at it, that's when, as I said at the beginning of the show, unless you're willing to look at the problem, you're never going to come up with the solutions or the resolutions to solve it. Now, what it's like looking at the negative parts of yourself. You look at the negative parts of yourself and you don't like it, and you go into that low place and you think, oh, I did this and I did that and that wasn't good and that wasn't da da da. But you
Right.
have a word with yourself, and then you have a word with yourself and you start thinking about, maybe I should do this and maybe I should do that. Suddenly you go down the line, suddenly you've changed and you've adapted. And if this world changes and adapts because it's willing to look at the problems, then we have resolution. When we have resolution, what happens? We get happy. We get
Yes.
happy. We fix the world. Unless we're willing to look at it and face this, we're never going to get to a point where we're going to find the solution and find the resolution. So we have to go through this. We all have to go through this. Part of the healing process is to look at the problem and then solve the problem.
Do you remember the first thing I said at the WSO conference when I got up there to speak? Do you remember my opening line? I come here to give you a message of hope. I don't know
Oh.
when this planet's going to come by. I don't know whether we got doom and gloom or whatever. I'm here to tell you how to prepare and deal with the problem. And I covered a solution and not be all doom and gloom. I gave a message of hope. And that's
Mm.
where we're going to end this show tonight. That we are here to support you guys. We are here to love you guys and to show you what's going, not as a fear monger, but as a message of hope. That there is hope. Even if you don't stay on this planet in this, I call it whatever avatar that we're in, that life goes on when you cross over. It's
Yeah.
not the end. Your spirit, your soul, the thing that you are inside, that energy goes on to another dimension. So, there's never an end. So,
Mm.
be a loving being, be a giving being, be in a compassion being, and that's what you'll be when you carry on the other side.
So true.
And I
Bless you,
love
bad
you.
baby.
I love you so much, and also I hope the information that I sent to you for Mom helped her a lot. Uh, you
Oh,
know,
bless. I'm gonna go see her, and I'm going back in, like, I've got to be back in a week. She phoned me. She phoned me. Well, I phoned her on day before yesterday, because I've been having such a good time in France. I mean, I speak to her all the time. You know what I mean? And as long as she's happy and she's doing all the stuff. But she said she was feeling a little bit. It's just starting to feel a little bit. She took a bit of morphine the other day, and she doesn't normally take morphine, and so it's just like, I don't know. So but she's dealing with cancer and that sort of stuff, and it's all part of the territory.
Yeah.
And pain does come up sometimes, and she's got to
Yeah.
navigate through it. But she's doing all the CBD, and she's doing the full spectrum now. I think it's all getting a bit more legalized in England now, and so it's opening up a lot more. But she's happy. She's really, really happy.
That's the
Even when
most
she's
important thing.
that's the best medicine you can have with cancer. That's what your ability to de-acid. Loads of people go on these alkaline diets, and it's all good, but actually, the best way you can deregulate, you can regulate. The best acid, well, the biggest acid buffer system in the body is the breath,
Yes.
and just like
Oxygen.
that's what it does. And so oxygen,
Yes.
breathing, being happy, working through your process, don't carry it. If you've got to go through your sadness, go through it, look at it, but try and come through to it with the intention of coming through to a place where you're going to come through to resolution and happiness. And that's what she does all the time. She does it almost, every breath she does. She always comes out with a, oh, she goes through it. So,
well, when you go
you're
see
welcome doing it.
her, give her a big hug from me and tell her I'm sending her love and light, and that I think about her often, and that I think she's a
Oh,
beautiful being. And
I always
just
forward.
God bless her.
Oh, bless you. I always forward every time you send me a little tip on send her this and send her that. I always forward it on to her. It's just lovely to have sort of she gets very looked after in Glastonbury. She's got lots and lots and lots of lovely friends in Glastonbury. So when I take a little trip out for sort of like a month or something, it's not a big problem. I mean, I wouldn't leave her in that state, but she's in a really good space at the moment. I mean, she really is in a good space at the moment. She amazes me, drives around, got her a little caravan, and just she's happy at the moment.
Yep.
All right,
Just tell her
baby.
take it one day at a time. Okay, well, thank you so much, Dave. I had a blast tonight. I love you. I love Jeff. I love all you people out there. And we'll set something up for maybe the end of next month. How does that sound?
Sounds brilliant. Sounds fantastic. I always
Okay.
love being on a show with Jeff and yourself, obviously. So we'll see you
Okay.
hopefully in a month or so.
Thanks a lot, sweetie. I will send you out an email, and we'll set up a date. Love
Okay.
you.
All the love in the world. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, that was Dave Dobbs and Jeff P. I hope you enjoyed the show. It was very enlightening for me. And next week, we will have Marshall Masters out here. And the week after that, I am not sure who I'm going to book. I might bring Robert Guffey back, but I might also bring back I'm thinking about another Planet X researcher. I can't think of his name right now, but I'll announce it next week. The person has just had surgery, so I'm not sure. So anyways, other than that, I hope you all enjoyed the show. Everybody have a safe and wonderful weekend. And remember, Bad Baby loves you.